able to do so in a way that made sense to me. So we're just going to stick with an overview of what is the Synod of the Northeast, how we are impacted by them, and what my role is in the Synod. So geographically speaking, the Synod of the Northeast is a fairly small synod, but we have a lot of members because, as you are probably aware, there's a lot of Presbyterians in the Mid-Atlantic region. The synod covers 8 states: Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Rhode Island, and Vermont. And within that, there are 22 presbyteries as of right now, and about 1,100 churches, give or take, depending on when these stats were compiled from the synod's website. So what the synod does, it's a lot different than it used to be, and our synod is a lot different than other synods around the country. The Synod of the Northeast is known for being fairly progressive, meaning that we aren't stuck in some of the old Presbyterian ways, which I think is a good thing. So the Synod of the Northeast has a few different aspects that they like to highlight in what they do. They like to strengthen the presbyteries by providing leadership development, mediation tools, and organizational tools that maybe presbyteries themselves wouldn't have been able to come up with or provide all of the resources themselves. They like to cultivate leaders by having hands-on in both individual coaching and group training, and that can be for presbyteries, for churches, or just for individual leaders within the synod. They are a huge advocate for social justice. They do that both on the synod level, and they help churches that may have a passion for a social justice issue, or presbyteries that are very involved. And that is something that was very present at the last General Assembly, which was held in St. Louis. They did a March with the Poor People's Campaign, and they were able to raise, I believe, $15,000 just from donations brought in at General Assembly. They fund theological and social innovation and opportunities for reconciliation. They do this through a lot of the grant programs that they offer, and those are both local grants for individual churches as well as grants for presbyteries. They support campus ministry and youth triennium. I will talk a little bit more about that later in terms of how that helps us here at Albany Presbyterian. They build and sustain networks of people. So one of the newer things that the synod has been doing over the last 4 or 5 years or so is actually creating networks. So for individual churches that are very passionate about a certain cause, what they're doing is being able to bring those churches together from across the synod so that they may be able to partner together and make more of a change in a broader, geographical area than just the area of their own particular church. And they organize gatherings to share best practices, such as the moderators gathering, where all the moderators of all the sessions and or presbyteries from the synod are able to go and receive training and talk about what they're doing and maybe gather ideas from others as to what may work best for their group. They have an emerging leaders event, which is for both young clergy and members of the church who are just interested in taking more of a leadership role. They have Come to the Table, which I'm going to be going to. It is an odd year event, and then the Synod Assembly is on even years, so it's one after the other. Synod Assembly is, more of the Presbyterian, as we think of it, meeting structure, the business and the governance. And then Come to the Table is more of the spiritual retreat-like event that they hold, every other year to bring us back to, our spiritual center within the church. The New Way Forward. Has anyone, besides probably my mother, heard of the New Way Forward? Okay, I'm glad because I have everything you would need to know about the New Way Forward. So what the New Way Forward is, back in the early 2010s, the Synod had decided that they felt that they were being too much pigeonholed by governance. And the Presbyterian, this is the book of order, these are the way we need to do adopted a foundational document that they named the New Way Forward. What the New Way Forward did is it identified the shared beliefs in the importance of creating diverse, connected communities and leadership, while engaging and empowering youth and younger members and emerging leaders, and then focusing more on mission than governance at the synod level. The working definition of the New Way Forward, the entire document is beautifully written, and I believe it's about 13 pages. I was not going to spare you, or not going to force you all the details, so I'm going to spare you just a couple of the, synopsis from the document. The working definition reads in part, it is the responsible of this regional community, meaning the synod, to walk alongside its presbyteries, offering the kinds of resourcing presbyteries are unable to provide alone. The synod exists to serve its presbyteries through resourcing, guidance, and the ability to gather partners on a larger scale. The synod also provides creative and less encumbered space for innovation. And I have seen this firsthand. My work with the synod started just a few years after the New Way Forward came to be, and just in my brief, first encounter with the synod, just about the same time that I went to General Assembly as a YAD, talking with some of the other YADs at General Assembly about, their synod, it was a complete difference. Their synods were either not involved at all because the presbyteries did not want them to be, or they were so governance and structurally based that it didn't feel like it was a spiritual organization. It felt more like a government type of oversight. And so that's why the New Way Forward was a major departure from what a lot of Presbyterian synods had been. You may also have heard the word mid-council. Some synods call themselves mid-councils, but that's one and the same. The missional purpose of the Synod of the Northeast, as defined by the New Way Forward, they focus very much on a piece of scripture from John 13, verses 34 through 35. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. They have, in my experience, embodied this scripture in the networks that they have been able to create, in the spiritual communities that they have been able to support through their mission, through their grants. And I think that what a lot of other synods could take from the Synod of the Northeast is taking a step back to look at what do our presbyteries, what do our churches in our region, what do they need from us. And so this New Way Forward was very important in that, in trying to be less of a big brother oversight type of structure and being more of a walk alongside, being more of a partner. In terms of what the Synod has done for Albany Presbytery, just this past year, in terms of the grants that we have been able to receive, they were able to provide $2,500 for the Russell Stage and RPI Campus Ministry Program, which is partnered with Troy Area United Ministries. They were able to provide $2,000 to the SUNY Albany Campus Ministry Program, which is partnered with Protestant Campus Ministry in Albany. And they were also able to provide $2,000 for the Campus Protestant Ministry at Union College. They will be changing their grant structure coming in I believe 2021 is when the changes for all grants are going to be in place. The difference between campus ministry grants and the emerging gospel community grants right now, they're working on changing the emerging gospel community grants first, and then they're going to work on campus ministry grants later. They want it to be more of a partnership, rather than the synod just handing out the money every year and whatever campus ministry program not finding a Presbyterian partner in the community. They want it to become more of a partnership, which by doing that, they will be able to spread the money around to more places. In terms of what I have done for the Synod of the Northeast, as of last January, so I think it was January 2019, I became part of the Mission and Ministries Commission. So what that group does, it is a group of both ruling elders and teaching elders, and there are also representatives from the caucuses and from Presbyterian women. We are a group that meets quarterly between the Synod Assemblies. So the Synod Assemblies are biennial conferences on even years, and so in between those conferences, our group needs to kind of continue the work of what's going to be happening at Synod Assembly, so that it ends up being only a day and a half long event and not a week long thing like General Assembly. So what our commission is comprised of, we have members from each of the 22 presbyteries. Sometimes there are dads that are commissioned based on, I believe, they split up their presbyteries and they have about 7 presbyteries for each 3-year term that can send a dad. We don't have any dads right now. I'm not sure why. I think part of it is just the scheduling to, the events are on Fridays and Saturdays. And so sometimes that is tough if you're not retired or not clergy, because the rest of us have somewhere to be usually on Friday. I have participated at Synod Assembly. I did it the first year. It was 2016, so the same year that I had gone to General Assembly. I participated. I was the advisor for the GADS because it was too late for me to be voted in as a commission member for Albany Presbyterian, but they were able to get me in there anyway. And then in 2018, I was one of Albany Presbyterian's delegates. And then I spoke previously a little bit about Come to the Table. So I will be going there November 9th and 10th, I believe. That's going to be at Stony Point Center, which I have never been, but I have been told it is beautiful. I know Donna has been before. So I'm hoping that it will be a great weekend where I can make more connections with more people from throughout the Synod. Because there are some people that are not as much into the business meetings, so they don't always come to mission and ministries events, but they would come to something, that's more spiritual, like Come to the Table. And where the Synod is going, from what I know at least, I had mentioned before that there's 22 presbyteries as of when those stats were compiled. But one of the main things that is going on in the Synod right now is the New Jersey missional structures. And I'm not super familiar with the presbyteries in New Jersey in terms of, the struggles that each of them may be having or the triumphs that they're experiencing. But what is happening is, I believe there are 5 or 6 presbyteries in New Jersey, and they are going to be consolidating them into 3 presbyteries. The little bit of backstory that I have gathered is that it's something that probably should have happened 30 years ago, that didn't. And so now that mission and, that project is being taken on. I believe it's in its 2nd year of the project, because they want it to be well vetted and to hear every concern from as many people in all those communities as they can. And so right now, where it stands is they are trying to come up with, the best way to restructure that state with those presbyteries and to try to do it in a way that has the least negative impact on, as many people as possible. Another thing that will be starting that hasn't really kicked off too much yet is reviewing the New Way Forward. It's been 6 years since it has, come to fruition, and we feel that we need to at least review it to see if it needs changing. So we will be starting soon, I believe, probably in 2020, about, the New Way Forward 2.0 is what we're calling it until it has, an official name. So that may be something that, depending on if I get roped into that, I may be coming to the congregation with surveys or, topics. I'm not really sure, because I don't know if we were very much involved in the New Way Forward, just because of what Albany Presbytery was kind of going through back in, 2011, 2012, before the New Way Forward, came about. But you may be involved in the New Way Forward 2.0. We will have to find out. Are any questions? Or something that people, want more clarification on? Awesome. Well, that is all I have, but if you think of anything, let me know. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to attend much of Albany Presbytery's gatherings because they've either been the same day as the synod gathering, which has happened twice now, and our next synod gathering is also the date of another Albany Presbytery session meeting. Or they've been, Tuesdays at 11 a.m. But I will attempt to get to a Presbytery meeting as soon as I can, just to keep the, First United name out there